It was supposed to be a relaxing summer vacation. Sarah and her friends rented a remote cabin deep in the woods, looking forward to escaping the stress of city life. As they arrived, they were greeted by towering trees, their branches casting eerie shadows in the fading daylight. The first few days were perfect. They hiked, swam in the nearby lake, and roasted marshmallows over the campfire. But one night, a storm rolled in, cutting off all communication with the outside world. That's when things started to go wrong. One evening, Sarah went for a walk alone in the woods. She felt a strange sensation of being watched, and the dense foliage seemed to close in around her. She quickened her pace, but it felt like the forest was playing tricks on her, leading her in circles. Eventually, she stumbled upon a clearing she didn't recognize. In the center stood an old, dilapidated cabin, its windows boarded up and its door hanging off its hinges. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she cautiously approached. Inside, she found old furniture covered in dust and cobwebs. But what sent shivers down her spine were the strange symbols scrawled on the walls in what looked like dried blood. Before she could investigate further, she heard a noise outside, footsteps crunching through the underbrush. Terrified, Sarah bolted from the cabin and ran blindly through the woods, not stopping until she reached the safety of her own cabin. She tried to tell her friends what she'd seen, but they brushed it off as her imagination running wild. But that night, as they slept, Sarah heard whispers outside their cabin. Whispers that sounded like they were coming from the darkness of the forest, and she knew they were not alone. Mark and his girlfriend Emily decided to spend their summer vacation exploring the historic town of St. Augustine, known for its beautiful architecture and rich history. They booked a room at a quaint old hotel that had been converted from a Victorian mansion. From the moment they arrived, something felt off. The atmosphere was heavy with an unexplained sense of dread, and the air seemed to chill as they stepped into the lobby. But they shrugged it off, attributing it to the hotel's age and the stories they'd heard about its haunted past. Their room was cozy, with antique furniture and a view of the town square. But as night fell, strange things began to happen. They heard footsteps in the hallway when no one was there, and Emily swore she saw a figure standing at the foot of their bed before it disappeared into thin air. Mark tried to reassure her, but even he couldn't deny the feeling of being watched. Things escalated on their third night. Mark woke up to find Emily standing by the window, her eyes glazed over and unseeing. She was muttering something incoherent, her voice low and guttural. When he tried to shake her awake, she snapped out of it, looking confused and disoriented. That's when they heard it, a chorus of whispers echoing through the room, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment. Mark grabbed Emily's hand, and they fled the room, racing down the hallway in terror. But the whispers followed them, echoing through the empty corridors as they ran. They reached the lobby and begged the night clerk to call the police. But when they returned to their room with the officers, it was empty. There was no sign of the haunting they had experienced, no evidence of anything out of the ordinary, except for the lingering feeling that they were not alone, even now as they stood in the empty room. Jake and his friends were thrill seekers, always on the lookout for their next adrenaline rush. So when they heard rumors of an abandoned amusement park deep in the desert, they couldn't resist the opportunity to explore. The park was a relic of a bygone era, its once bright attractions now faded and rusted from years of neglect. But there was something eerie about the way the rides creaked in the wind, as if they were alive and longing for the laughter of children. They spent the day exploring the deserted park, climbing on broken-down roller coasters and wandering through empty funhouses. But as the sun began to set, they realized they were lost. Panic set in as they tried to find their way out, but every turn seemed to lead them deeper into the maze of decaying attractions. And then they heard it, the sound of children's laughter echoing through the deserted park. They followed the sound, hoping it would lead them to safety, but instead it led them to a decrepit carousel, its paint peeling and its horses frozen in mid-gallop. And there, sitting on the rusted benches, were the ghostly figures of children, their faces twisted in eternal laughter. Jake and his friends tried to run, but they were surrounded. The children reached out to them, their hands icy cold as they grabbed hold and pulled them into the darkness. And that's when Jake realized the true horror of the abandoned amusement park. They were not the first to wander into its clutches, and they wouldn't be the last. The darkness enveloped Jake and his friends as they were dragged deeper into the abandoned amusement park. Their screams echoed through the empty rides, but there was no one around to hear them except the ghostly children. They stumbled through the darkness, trying to break free from the icy grip of their captors. But no matter how hard they fought, they couldn't escape the relentless pull of the ghostly figures. Suddenly, they found themselves in a dilapidated circus tent at the heart of the park. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the sound of distant carnival music echoed eerily in the stillness. In the center of the tent stood a ringmaster, his top hat casting a shadow over his face. He gestured for Jake and his friends to join him, his voice a hollow whisper that sent shivers down their spines. "You have stumbled into my domain," the ringmaster said, his voice carrying a sinister tone. "Welcome to the Carnival of Lost Souls." Jake and his friends tried to run, but they were trapped. The ghostly children surrounded them, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light as they closed in. The ringmaster's grin widened, revealing rows of sharp, gleaming teeth. "You will entertain us," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "And if you're lucky, you may even earn your freedom." With that, the ringmaster snapped his fingers, and the carousel began to spin. Jake and his friends were forced onto the rickety horses, their hands bound tightly as they were propelled around and around, the ghostly children laughing and cheering. As the night wore on, Jake and his friends were subjected to more and more twisted attractions. A haunted house filled with horrors beyond imagination, a Ferris wheel that seemed to climb endlessly into the darkness, and a roller coaster that defied the laws of physics. But with each ride, they felt their strength waning, their spirits breaking under the relentless onslaught of terror. Just when they thought they couldn't take any more, a glimmer of hope appeared. A small, flickering light at the edge of the tent, beckoning them towards it like a beacon in the darkness. With a burst of desperation, Jake and his friends broke free from their captors and ran towards the light, their hearts pounding in their chests. But as they reached the exit, they realized the true horror of their situation. They were trapped in the Carnival of Lost Souls, condemned to wander its twisted halls for all eternity. And as the tent faded into the darkness behind them, they knew they would never escape its clutches. With their strength waning, Jake and his friends stumbled out of the abandoned amusement park, relieved to be free from the horrors within. As they emerged into the light of dawn, they vowed never to return, knowing that some nightmares are best left undisturbed. But deep down, they knew the ghosts of the Carnival of Lost Souls would haunt them forever.